Welcome to the chat where the deals get done. Real estate tips and a whole lot of fun. Think different, achieve your goals. Real estate simplified, that's how we roll.
Hello there. Mike Cruz, broker owner of Reside the Real Estate Company, here with Brandon Rizik
Good morning.
from Allied Mortgage.
Allied Mortgage, yes. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody today? Mike, how you doing?
Doing fantastic.
Good.
Another
Good.
day. We are going to take a look at the whole buying process from the time you're in the contract, start the contract, I should say, until you get keys in your hand. So we're going to take it step by step, break it all down, and make it so the buying process isn't scary for you. It's really quite simple. We take care of the hard stuff, and you're there to enjoy the process and get your keys to your new home and be excited. That's really what it should be all about. So
That's why you hire professionals, right? So
Right.
they can do it for you, but it goes back to finding your good agents, finding the people you trust, and,
Yeah, absolutely.
and loan officers and agents. So.
right. Little bit though, quick, brief market update before we really get into it. And the good news for home buyers, this is your market. I think it's safe to say we're totally in a buyer's market right now. Doesn't mean the market's dead. It's not bad for sellers. Prices are stable, but as far as inventory goes, you have a lot to choose from. Once again, approaching 11,000 homes available on the market here in the Las Vegas area. And homes are still selling, so don't think if you look at a home today that you can come back and make an offer on it next week, because that may not necessarily be the case. We have seen about 650 homes go under contract in the last 7 days. So it's not a horrible number. Buyers are still out there, sellers want to sell.
I think that people need to understand that even though it is becoming and shifting to a buyer's market, I really don't believe the news. I don't believe what I'm hearing where, highest it's ever been and all of these things. This doesn't mean you can go in there 40% under market and get a steal
Right.
and all that. Usually, I would let Mike elaborate more on that. I mean, values are still holding. I mean, that's what's
Yeah,
crazy.
just to touch on that real quick before we get into what we really want to talk about today is, inventory might be the highest it's ever been in Las Vegas, but you need to remember
Our
the
population is higher
has
than it's ever
exploded.
been. That's right.
The builders have been building homes like crazy the last, I want to say 25 years, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a brief halt on it from 2009 to 2012, but even then there were still homes being built.
Big deal. They made up for that in the last 10 years.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, it's been unbelievable numbers.
Don't believe the doomsday guys. Highest
Yeah.
listings, it just also means highest population as well. I 100% agree with Mike on this one. Listen, listings are high. It is technically a buyer's market in our
Right.
opinion, but it doesn't mean that things are crashing. The end of the world is not coming in Las Vegas real estate by any means.
No.
In fact, I'm seeing buyers try to go in and steal properties, and sellers are just saying no.
Right.
Because, they don't, most of the time, they don't need to sell. It's a want. So, you can get incentives, you can get things, but at the same time, they're not taking it in the shorts, so to say.
Right.
But on the rate side, here we are mid-June 2025, and rates again are just staying pretty flat, consistent, as we've talked about in the past. The Fed did not lower rates this time, which is not a shocker to most of us here. We did know that was the case. Do I agree with it? No. But at the same time, I'll just come out and say, no, I don't agree with him. But at the same time, I'm not Mr. Powell, and he knows more about these things than I do. So I would like rates to eventually come down. Of course, everybody would. But, we do need to rely on what they're doing and their economic forecasts. So,
Absolutely.
So,
All
but,
right.
Mike, I want to start with you, actually, because, people get their pre-approvals from me or whatnot, but at the same time, they go shopping and they get their home, they're in contract.
Right.
They've negotiated with you, Mike, right? So then they have this thing called earnest money, and I'll let you elaborate on what earnest money is, but for those of you who don't know, when you get in contract, you're going to have to put up some kind of good faith deposit, so to say, earnest money. And then what happens with that money? Is it, when you're in contract, like what happens in this contract, and why is that money safe for the buyer? Is it secured for the seller? Is it gone the minute you throw it up? What happens, Mike?
So the earnest money is the first step the buyer needs to take after going into contract.
That's what the
And
seller will take it off the market.
That's when the seller takes it off the market. That money goes into escrow and will sit there. And typically here in the Southern Nevada area, your earnest money is about 1% of the purchase price. That money will sit there. It's not lost money. It's not like you're paying to buy the house and paying additional for it. That money actually gets applied towards your down payment or closing costs. So it's just good faith money showing the seller that you intend to complete this purchase. And the money sits in escrow. Escrow does not do anything with that money. It is literally there until the close of escrow, unless there is some type of other agreement. Occasionally that happens where you have to release it to the seller after a certain period, but that's the exception, not
Pretty
the rule.
rare.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question. Okay, so I'm your buyer. Okay, Mike, I'm putting up $5,000, 1% of my $500,000 house.
Right.
Okay, we have 30 days to close this.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of what ifs, right? So we have home inspections, we have appraisals, we have loan approvals.
Absolutely.
Which we're going to get into those. Okay, but Mike, I'm your buyer. Let's just say I get into this and at the end, I say I don't want to buy this house.
So
What
you
happens?
do have multiple contingencies. And here in the Las Vegas market, our contracts are basically all uniform. They're provided by the Las Vegas Association of Realtors. So all the purchase contracts essentially look the same. The exception is if you are purchasing in new construction from a builder, those can be different. But we're not going to get into that for the sake of today's podcast. We're just going to talk about the main contract that's used with a resale home. So you have contingency, what we call due diligence, and I'm going to touch on each of these and then we'll get into each of them in detail. You have due diligence, which is basically your inspection period. And essentially, this is a variable time. It can be anywhere from 7 to 14 days on average. It's 10 days. And basically, you can cancel any reason within those first 10 days for any reason. It is written to protect you, the buyer. After that, you have your appraisal contingency. So the property has to be appraised within a certain period of time. You have a loan contingency. So your loan needs to be fully approved within that specified period of time. If in a true buyer's market, we try to extend that as long as possible up to the close of escrow. In a seller's market, it's usually shortened a little bit just to give the seller enticement to accept your offer over other offers. And then also, if there's an HOA, you have a period of time to review those documents stated by the state of Nevada. So we'll talk about that a little bit more too. But we'll go ahead and...
Let's talk about Mike real quick. You mentioned the due diligence period
Yes.
on average is 10 days.
Right.
You said 5 to 14 days or 7 to 14 days. I'm sorry, I didn't miss that.
Yeah.
But you said on average it's 10 days.
Correct.
Okay, so you have your inspection period. That's what you
Yes.
mentioned. So tell me about the inspection period. What happens if you get an inspection, there's a problem? What happens if it's all good? Go through that.
So the due diligence is mainly for inspections, but it's also, if you have any questions about what's going on in the neighborhood, is there a vacant parcel of land at the entrance to the community and you're concerned what might be built there, that due diligence period is set up to find out what exactly might be built there and answer all of your questions that you have about the home, about the neighborhood, about the city. Maybe you're just moving into Las Vegas and you have a couple concerns. Schools, zoning, all of that stuff. That due diligence period is all for that. But the main thing is the home inspection. And with the home inspection, there are things that need to be done. You're going to pay for the home inspection. You're going to get the home inspection report. And then you and your agent are going to sit down, put a list together of items that need to be repaired by the seller or that you'd like to be repaired by the seller. And sometimes they can do those repairs or they can offer a credit, and that's up to you as the buyer.
Or they can tell you no.
Or they can say, no, we're not doing any of this.
It's all negotiable.
Absolutely. So, but by the end of that due diligence period, that negotiation needs to be complete. Whatever the seller has agreed to repair will need to be repaired. It doesn't need to be repaired by the end of the due diligence period, but it does need to be negotiated.
By the end of the,
Right.
it needs to be repaired or fixed by the close of
Right.
escrow. But the negotiation period is the due diligence.
Correct.
That's,
If
that makes sense.
you can't come back on day 11 if you have a 10-day due diligence and ask for something else to be repaired.
Unless
That's
you
the bottom
extend
line.
it. Unless you extend
Right.
it, right.
So basically within that 10-day period, that's your most flexibility.
Okay, okay. Well, that's good to know.
And then as we move along into the appraisal contingency, and Brandon, you can explain this because this applies more to the loan side on how that works.
So while generally the appraisal is happening, it's usually ordered within a few business days of your contract being accepted. Okay, you have the appraisal contingency. Generally, they range from, I'll say 12 to 20 days. In today's normal market, it's about 15 days. I mean, you know, you can go a little higher on that or lower depending on the bank or the seller, whatever their requirements are. But we order the appraisal as a lender, okay? And then from there, when we order this appraisal, we're picking it from a third-party management company. We're not calling our appraiser saying, hey man, you're my buddy, I need help. No, it's coming from a third party. We're a neutrally biased, you know, a company that will assign an appraiser to go out to the property, and they will look at the property, review there's no health or safety issues, and then from there they will perform what they call their version of the market value. So we'll say, what is market value real quick? I mean, without going into the whole appraisal, market value is an appraiser's, a third party's opinion
Right.
on as to justifying what you're paying for a property. A lot of people think that an appraiser can just pick what the value is. Two appraisers might come up with two different values.
Right.
In fact, that
I
happens
was
a
going to
lot.
say might.
It might. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
And so, but their job is to justify what you're paying for the property. As a consumer, the market value is technically what you're willing to pay for it. So, you know, if you have one person willing to pay this dollar, and only one person, then generally that's not the market value. But if you have 10 people lined up that are willing to pay the same price, that would be market value. You know, that is the market. So what is market value? Essentially, they have to justify what you're willing to pay for that property. And how they justify it is other sales around. They put the most weight on recent sales in the neighborhood or in the community with like homes, and they average it out. They take into consideration upgrades and things like that, non-upgrades, or they also will take into consideration what's on the market. So generally, that comes back within a week from the day we order it. So if we're a few business days in, we order it, and then we have about 7 actual calendar days that it usually comes back at. And the appraiser will tell us that it meets health or safety standards as a bank. We will, now don't rely on the appraiser for your inspection, but the bank relies on the appraiser to say there's no health or safety issues in there, meaning broken glass, you know, the hot water heater's not working, or the water's not hot, you know, whatever, the furnace doesn't work, whatever it may be. So appraisal generally costs about $500 to $600, and it's done, again, within 10 to 15 days usually. And a lot of times people ask me about, what if a value comes in high, what if it comes in low? So let's just use $500,000 as an example. So you're buying a house, Mike, for $500,000. And you're saying that's market value. You say, well, Brandon, what if it comes in at 520? Well, we don't tell anybody that. That's just good news, okay? You as the consumer, as the borrower on the loan, that is your appraisal. It is not the seller's appraisal. So we cannot, without your permission, tell them what the value is. We can just say value is met.
Right.
Meaning that $500,000 is met. Or what happens if it comes in at the purchase price, which is actually more common than you think. Generally, the appraiser is just saying what you're paying for it is, you know, roughly what it's worth. Then the next thing is, if it comes in low, this is where things get hairy. You know, if it comes in low, you see this, and I'll call you as a lender, and hey, Mike, realtor, hey, you bought it for $500,000, but it's only worth $490 today. Well, you're not obligated to pay the difference. This is why you have your contingency period. And then from there, if that appraisal's back within that period, you go back to the drawing table and renegotiate with the seller. And I'll put the renegotiating
Right.
in your hands at this point.
Okay, so basically when that happens, I get Brandon's phone call and he says, "Do you have a minute?" And I know it's not good.
I say that every time. I say that every time when it's good
You
too.
do. Basically, we have three options if an appraisal comes in low. So we can ask the seller to accept the appraisal price, which is always, if you have a good agent, that's always what we do first. Second option is you as the buyer can pay the agreed to original price, but if there's that difference between the appraised value and the purchase price needs to be paid in cash. So basically it's increasing your down payment. And on this $500,000 home, if the appraisal comes in at $490,000, that's $10,000 cash more you have to bring to the table.
If the seller says no and you still want the house.
And I can
right?
tell you as a real estate agent, I never recommend a buyer paying over the appraised value.
No, I agree.
The third option is you can meet somewhere in the middle. If you're in an increasing market and it is multiple offers and the appraisal still came in low and the seller says, "You know what, we'll split the difference with you. You agree to pay $495,000 and we're coming down $5,000, you come up $5,000, you still have to pay that difference in cash of $5,000, but you know the way the market's trending, in a couple months you'll have that value. Or maybe even you can justify that value and it was just a little bit of a low appraisal.
And
it depends on the situation.
Or you can walk away.
Or you can walk away.
And get your earnest money
money
back
back.
because you had it done in your
Right.
contingency period, which is
As
very
long as that appraisal is back within that appraisal contingency.
Right. So this is a second layer of protection
Right.
for the consumer on top of the due diligence. And then you mentioned earlier the resale. I don't think this is a complicated thing. We can probably, get it pretty summarized.
Right.
But if you have an HOA, there's a resale diligence. What is that?
Exactly. So the state of Nevada states that you have 5 days to review your HOA resale documents. This is usually a pretty thick package.
Yeah.
A couple hundred pages.
I've never
So
read one. I've read a couple pages, but I've
most
never
people
read it
haven't.
cover to
Every
cover.
once in a while, I'll get somebody that literally reads it word for word. But you legally have 5 days. If you have a problem with it and you have questions for the HOA, you have to get those questions answered within 5 days. There's no extending that period. I've had clients ask that before.
You're better off driving down to the HOA office at
Exactly.
that point, right?
Right. You absolutely can't extend that period. It is 5 days. That's what the law states. End of story. But within those 5 days, you come across something that says you can't park on the street. If that's an issue, you can cancel and get your earnest deposit back. Yes, you are still out the money for your appraisal.
Or you can't rent your house
home
out ever.
inspection. Right, something like that too.
Something to keep an eye
Usually
out
we
for.
try and find that stuff out up front.
A
but-
good realtor would notice that and tell you that. Anyway, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
We do,
So,
yes, most definitely. So yeah, that's the resale package. And then loan contingency is usually the contingency. And what exactly is
This
final
kind of
part?
speaks for itself, okay? It's not as complicated as it might sound, okay? You generally get 20 to 30 days on the loan contingency inside a contract, and usually you close within 30 days, so it's really
Right.
close to the closing date. But it is our job as a lender and your job as a consumer to make sure that you have your full loan approval within that time frame. So if something happens to your job, to whatever, to your loan, somebody made a mistake, whatever it is, and the bank cannot close your loan, as long as you're within that contingency period, you get your earnest money refunded. You lose the money on the appraisal, the home inspection, whatever that might be, but at least that 1% earnest money that we talked about will be refunded back to you. Now, you have your contingency period on the loan. Now, what happens if your contingency is 22 days on your loan, and I'm good with your loan, but then, the close of escrow is 30 days, and then from there, I'll make this quick, on the 29th day, you lose your job, God forbid. Unfortunately, you don't have protection there.
Right.
So you always, as Mike said earlier, you want to make sure your loan contingency is good for as long as you possibly can in the contract to secure your end from unforeseen issues. So, but as far as your earnest money is concerned, it is not at risk until your loan contingency is fully over. and then you have your time period between the loan contingency and closing,
Right.
which usually is just, hey, we get the loan documents, you sign, you wire your money, and move on.
I do have a quick story for you there with the loan contingency. Years ago, this was back in 2009, I had a very good friend purchasing a home. The day he was supposed to close, he got laid off from his job. Walked into work that morning, and he was relieved of his duties. 45 minutes later, his employer got a phone call from the mortgage lender to verify his employment one last time.
Yep.
They said he is no longer employed here.
We do verify employment one last time before
Right.
closing. Now, is it usually that day or the day before? We usually do it right around within 24 hours of closing. Absolutely. It's a verbal verification.
Right. So he was not able to close on his home. He literally got a job the same day, started a new job the following Monday, but didn't have the pay stubs for the new job, so they wasn't able to close. Luckily, it was 2009 was definitely a buyer's market.
Yeah, it was a different time.
So
much different
the
time.
loan contingency went up until then. He got his earnest money back. But to this day, he refers to that house as the house he was supposed to get. And I tell him, no, if you were supposed to get it, you would have.
You would have got it. Everything. That's one thing about real estate or financing that I'll always stand by. But whatever's meant to happen will happen.
Right.
There is no
Right.
it's 23 years I've been doing this, Mike. I've never seen it not work
Yeah.
out that way. So.
Yeah.
So that's really the timeline. That is your earnest money. Those are the timelines in your contract. These are the protections that you have. Again, you want to hire a good professional to make sure that they're watching out for this and reminding you of these timelines, because it is our job. We have reminders as a loan officer, as a realtor. This needs to be done by then. If it's not, boom, we need to extend it, whatever it is. So, but Mike, I'll let you go. Today we have, Mike has a couple listings he'd like to talk about, a couple of homes for sale. I'll turn it over to you. So.
Yes, we have a couple featured listings, if we could get the slides up. Our first home is located in Cadence. This is a single-story home, absolutely beautifully done, 1,842 square feet, and 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and it's listed at $540,000. It's actually the lowest price home with this square footage in Cadence right now. That's a
And
single
it's still
story.
pretty new. How old is it?
It is pretty new. I believe it is built in 2023.
I mean, that's brand new to me. So, I
Practically,
mean,
yes.
listen, you can go buy something that's built in 2025
Yeah.
for 10%, 20% more. You have one that's already built for you and it's brand new.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Fully landscaped. You can see here, beautiful kitchen with the dark wood cabinets, stainless steel appliances, and then
Beautiful
if we
kitchen.
it is very functional, lots of counter space, large primary bedroom and bath. You see lots of windows also. So many times we only see windows on one side of the room or something, and this has tons of windows, natural light, and large
Visitor
double vanity.
sinks.
Yeah. Just a beautiful home. It is available and ready to go. It is vacant.
Backyard's done.
And located at 789 Dramatico Place in Henderson. Absolutely gorgeous and available, ready to go at $540,000. They did just lower the price from $549,000. The next one I have is located in North Las Vegas, 7107 Tillagary Street. This home built in 2023 also,
Brand new again.
practically brand new, and it's a better deal than what the builders are
I
offering.
like the paver driveways. I do.
That
both
is
of
a
them have
nice-
paver driveways. It's very
really
it's
nice
a classy
touch.
touch, I think.
Absolutely. We could go see the kitchen. This has a more modern look.
Oh, that's pretty.
Beautiful light fixtures, the white cabinets, the stainless steel hood over the stove.
Look at that
actually,
glass.
it's a cooktop.
Look at that glass too in the back. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, man.
Actually, I think, no, I don't have that photo in here, but those back doors, they are the sliders that open in the middle, making it really nice.
That's a really expensive upgrade, guys. That's an amazing upgrade.
It is. Beautiful island, and you can see a large great room area. Just a beautiful home here.
You know, real quick, man. See, I see this, how open that is to the kitchen. You know, listen, I'm talking like a consumer. I'm sorry, Mike, you laughing
good.
at me. You know, I'm not in real estate, but I see this. Now, anytime somebody comes over my house or I have family gatherings, no matter how nice my living room is, we're in the kitchen family room area. We're in this type of area, and the fact that it's open with all that sunlight, everything, it actually looks very, very nice. It's a very pretty room to me. I'm sorry, I'm done chiming in at this point.
Absolutely is. If this is my favorite room in the whole house, the primary bathroom. That shower is huge. You see that stool on the far right side, and then the shower head towards the top left.
That's pretty.
It is absolutely a huge shower. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then this is the backyard. What makes this better than buying from the builder? First off, the price of the home is about $30,000 to $40,000 less than the builder. The backyard landscaping already done. It's only 2 years old, barely lived in. The beautiful balcony, and the best part, to be super competitive, the sellers are offering to pay for a 2-1 buy down.
Okay,
get
so wait
you
a minute.
lower interest rate. So if you want to.
Well, wait a minute. Okay,
Elaborate on
so
that?
listen, I don't want to sound like a salesman here because I don't even know this house. I don't know anything about it. But here, both houses that you just mentioned, both listings, they're both 2 years old.
Right.
Or maybe even a year and a half, really.
Right.
Okay, so, but the backyards are both done, and they're both under the builder price. So you just mentioned on the one that was $30,000-$40,000 under price. Well, the backyard alone cost $20,000.
Right.
So now you're $50,000-$60,000 underpriced, right? So you can go buy the same house that's a year and a half, 2 years newer, or this one's already done, and you're walking it at a much better price and a much better thing. So now here's another caveat. You just mentioned they're willing to do a buy down.
Right.
On the interest rate. So, I mean, guys, I mean, this is a huge incentive. So on that specific house, you just told me in my head, you're $50,000-$60,000 under the builder, and you're giving the same incentives that the builder's giving you.
Exactly.
It's a no-brainer.
So, yeah,
It's a
they're
no-brainer.
both great
Sorry.
deals. 7107 Tillage area was the second home, and 789 Dramatico Place in Henderson was the first single-story home there.
Awesome listings,
So,
Mike. Awesome.
they're beautiful homes.
That's good.
And we did get a couple questions for this week.
Yeah, go ahead. What do we got?
So how long do you have to own a home before you can rent it out?
Okay,
And
so
assuming
with
this
the
is-
financing.
I was going to say with financing and assuming you purchased it with a owner-occupied loan.
Yes. So let's just you pay cash. You can do whatever you want. There's no question. So you have financing and you bought it as an owner-occupied house, and you say, well, I want to live in it for a little while, but I might end up renting it out, or we bought it as a primary and then something happened and we ended up having to rent it out, or am I going to get in trouble? This happens a lot, actually. So, you have to understand that as a primary residence loan, generally the rule of thumb is 12 months to live in the property, that you were going to live in the property for 12 months, not 2 years, not 10 years, not 5, 12 months. Okay, but here's what happens. Life happens, okay? You bought the house, and then 3 months later, you got your fiance got pregnant.
Right.
Now you need another bedroom. Okay, well, the bank's not going to sit here and say, oh, you did mortgage fraud. You're going to have to look at it and say, what was the intention?
Okay.
That's the way the bank is going to look at this, or anybody will. But generally, the rule of thumb is 12 months. Move into it 12 months, then rent it out. Great. But if something happens, a life event or something changes, you have to move across the country, whatever it is, then the bank's going to understand. Mm-hmm. So any life events can change that, but generally it is 12 months. But in that same line, we got a question here about how long do how do you avoid paying capital gains tax? Because that is a hot topic when you sell homes. A lot of people live in it, a lot of people don't. Mike, tell us about it in a nutshell. Obviously, we're not accountants.
Right. I know I get this question multiple times a week. And my immediate response is, no, I'm not an accountant. So talk to a CPA, talk to your accountant before making any firm decisions. However, the general rule of thumb is if you have lived in the home 2 of the last 5 years, you can avoid 2 of the most recent last 5 years, you can avoid capital gains.
Okay, so a lot of people I know personally, they will literally buy a house, live in it for 2 years, and then flip it and sell it, buy another one, and they have no capital gains at that point.
That we see
fine.
all the time.
Right, but it is 2 years.
It is 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and you do have to be able to prove that residency with utilities in your name,
File taxes.
having it as your mailing address, stuff like that.
Awesome.
But once again, consult your accountant for the real answer.
And of course, so as always, guys, ask questions in the comments. Please remember to like. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Share it. Please ask questions. And looking forward to next week's podcast too, Mike.
Yes.
We wrote a pretty good one. I think that that's a really good one. It's about what improvements do to your home. So please stay tuned. And please think different and achieve your goals. Right?
Absolutely. And you can follow us now on Facebook at Real Estate Simplified LV.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to the chat where the deals get done. Real estate tips and a whole lot of fun. Think different, achieve your goals. Real estate simplified. That's how we roll.